Nintendo here, and welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Sci-Fi, where we talk about science fiction, books, movies, and television shows that just don't get enough credit nowadays. And this week, I had a movie all picked out, but I just finished a full rewatch of all 5 seasons of Warehouse 13. So this week, Warehouse 13. All right, so let's get into it. Warehouse 13 was broadcast from 2009 to 2014 on the Sci-Fi channel. That means we did not have big budgets. Now, myself, I like writing, I like character development, and these are the things that are important to me. So campy special effects, I'm okay with. I love Doctor Who for this. Older Doctor Who had really, really cheesy side effects, and it was all part of the charm of the show. Warehouse 13 has some good special effects, but they also have some really campy ones, and I'm okay with that, man. To me, that makes the show more fun. So, Warehouse 13 was on for 5 seasons, and there were 4 full seasons, and then, unfortunately, they got the call from Sci-Fi that they were not really being renewed, but they got very lucky because this rarely happens. Sci-Fi told them, we are going to give you a 5th season to wrap things up, but you have to do it in 6 episodes. So, the 5th season does wrap up almost all of the plot threads. It's a very compact season. There were a couple writing choices I don't agree with, but at the same time, they only had 5 or 6 episodes to wrap up an entire 4-year series. So they did the best with what they had, and I appreciate that. Now, the story of the Warehouse mainly follows Pete and Micah. Pete and Micah were Secret Service agents who did not know each other, and they both became involved in hunting down an artifact. And through this, they joined the Warehouse. Now, Artie runs the Warehouse, and a few episodes in, Claudia comes in. Claudia is only 22 years old, 21 years old, somewhere up in there. She's young, and she becomes their tech support and then later becomes a field agent. Also, she also gets a partner in the 3rd season, Jinx, who is a human lie detector and can tell when people are lying to him. And it makes him a little awkward around people, which I find interesting, and it probably would. And to me, that's some pretty good writing and great acting by that actor. Now, Pete and Micah, Pete feels vibes, good or bad, both from artifacts and from people. Micah, on the other hand, is obviously the brains of the pair. She is way smarter than Pete, but she's very skeptical. And she starts dropping a lot of that cynicism in season 2 and becomes a much more likable character. And throughout the series, you really get to enjoy the way they interact with each other. I do think there's a danger in shows when your 2 main leads are a man and a woman of about the same age, and it's the whole will they, won't they thing. And of course, in Warehouse 13, that existed, but not to an excessive extent. It was not distracting. It was kind of in the background. It was very non-spoken. There were not a lot of uncomfortable moments or anything like that. So, everything played out as it legitimately would. Now, let's get into the artifacts. What is an artifact? The artifacts on Warehouse 13 are going to be your monster of the week or your MacGuffin of the week, your object of the week that they need to obtain. Now, artifacts are housed in Warehouse 13, and they have magical properties that allow them to do things that they were not originally designed to do. For example, we'll say the lens piece to Galileo's telescope would allow you to see the truth. And when you point that at someone, you would be able to see the truth. But there's a negative side effect to all these items. So these items are collected and stored and cataloged in the warehouse. They don't want them out in the world. Now, the warehouse is also not beholden to any government, and this is the 13th iteration of the warehouse. And we even get to go back and see Warehouse 2 in Egypt. So it's all very interesting. Also, they do a lot of things like that, like Galileo's eyepiece for his telescope, and that becomes an artifact. I love the way they do that because you can grab any item from history. And the thing is, along the way, it's kind of like old Doctor Who, where you got a little bit of a history lesson along with the fantasy elements. So if you're good at deducing the fantastical from the historical, there's actually a lot of little historical nuggets to learn here. I was also surprised with the amount of guest stars in this series, now that I've rewatched it. When I originally watched it, I didn't watch the final season. My life had moved on, and I just didn't have time to watch it, and I forgot about it for many years until recently. Now that I'm watching it again, there are so many people I recognize. You have Joe Flanagan from Stargate Atlantis. He was John Shepard. And if you watch Stargate Atlantis, you get exactly why I just did that voice like that. Pete's ex-wife is the actress that plays Seven of Nine on Star Trek Voyager and now Star Trek Picard. There are just so many people along the way. We even meet the historical representation of H.G. Wells, who becomes a fantastic character. There's generally a bad guy for each season, but the bad guy sometimes feels almost inconsequential because the real stories are in the warehouse. Those are my favorite episodes. Maybe not the field missions to retrieve an artifact, but maybe an artifact going haywire inside the warehouse. I love the inside of the warehouse. There are pyramids in there. There are homes in there. There's Ferris wheels in there. Everything you can imagine is inside this warehouse. It's so gigantic. And to me personally, the warehouse itself was what it was all about. Everything else was secondary. And I don't know if it was written that way, but that's the way I felt it, and I appreciated it. So I'm not going to give away any spoilers. You should definitely check out the series. It's a lot of fun. The seasons fly by. There's no dragging episodes that you're like, oh my God, I can't. There's none of that. It's a lot of fun. It's all the way through. It flows very quickly, and the last season wraps up pretty well and pretty satisfying overall. So definitely check out Warehouse 13. Phenomenal show. I hope I told you something you didn't already know before about it, and that would be fantastic. And also, hit us up for PGS. We submit any Pokemon baseball cards, anything of the like, also video games and comic books to CGC, who has a very long track record of doing a phenomenal job with no controversy. We submit for you. We save you money. We save you frustration. It's the best thing going right now. So, if you're interested in preserving your memorabilia, here's our email address. Everybody, we'll see you Friday for the Nerd News, and have a good day.